You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. As Manitoba continues to grapple with rising case counts and broader restrictions, this particular segment feels even more appropriate as we hunker down in our own homes. It's the first Friday of the month, and that means it's time to welcome Chris Hall of McNalley Robinson Booksellers with his suggestions for what to read. And as it's not just adults who need reading suggestions, this morning we're also joined by kids bookseller Kai Bergen. Hello to you both.
Hello, Simon.
Hey.
Great to see you. A pleasure having you both back on the show. Kai, I'd like to begin with you. For the younger of the young readers out there, I understand you've got a suggestion queued up. What do you have to suggest?
That's right. So I'm sure many people with children will be familiar with Oliver Jeffers. He's an extremely prolific children's book writer, and this is his newest book. It's called What We'll Build, Plans for Our Together Future. And it is a follow-up to a different book that he wrote a couple years ago called Here We Are. I'm showing the cover now. You can't see it because of the Zoom background.
Yes, the fun Zoom background where we see your domain up above, the fun magical staircase. I remember climbing it as a kid. Now, I don't have any kids myself. My wife is an educator, so I know who Oliver Jeffers is. Tell us a little bit about why you think people enjoy Oliver Jeffers so much, because I know he's a bit of a big deal.
Yeah, well, Oliver Jeffers has this really great way of writing to children. He doesn't really talk down to them. He just seems to be able to put himself in the mind of a child and write stories that really seem to resonate with them. As well, a lot of his stories have really powerful messages in them, but they don't feel preachy. They're really well integrated into the story.
Yeah, and you got to also mention the fact that he illustrates them himself, right?
Oh yes, he's an incredible artist. He actually is a professional artist and has done gallery shows of his work. But he does, as you said, all of the illustrations for his own picture books as well, and they're beautiful.
Yeah, a great addition to any young reader's collection. Now, for an older young reader, what do you have to suggest?
I have the newest book from our very own local David Alexander Robertson. It's called The Reckoner Rises, Volume 1 Breakdown, and it is a graphic novel continuation of the story he started in the Reckoner trilogy.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
So this is continuing the story of Cole Harper and friends who have some mysterious superpowers, and they're investigating a sketchy corporation called Miko Laboratories in the city of Winnipeg.
Oh, wow. Talk about a local angle to it. Sounds like a very gripping story. Kai, I want to thank you for the suggestions. Some great picks for the younger and slightly older readers out there. For the novel itself, the graphic novel, what age roughly are we talking in terms of reading here?
I would say ages 14 plus. You could go a little younger, but there is some violence, some talk of mental illness, a bit of heavy content, so you might want to watch this with the younger readers.
Yeah, still so important though. Thanks so much. We're gonna swing back over to Chris Hall. Hey, Chris. Oh, there you've popped back in. Chris, where do you want to start? You've got some diverse suggestions this month, as always.
I always challenge myself. Well, the place I wanted to start was a book called If I Knew Then by Jan Arden. Jan Arden, of course, a very well-known singer and actress in Canada. She's also a writer. She's had a couple of memoirs, including Feeding My Mother, which came out a couple of years ago about her experiences with caring for her aging elder mother. This new one, she's heading into her 60s. And so this book, as the subtitle says, is about finding wisdom in failure and power in aging. And it reads like you're sitting down having a cup of coffee across the kitchen table from her. She has that charm that I think we're familiar with, that self-effacing sense of humor. It's just a great way to spend a quiet afternoon.
Oh, doesn't that sound lovely? Hey, speaking of sitting down in the kitchen, I understand you've got a food suggestion, a new cookbook to take up here. What do you have queued up?
Well, one of the superstar cookbook authors these days, Yotam Ottolenghi, He has a new one called Ottolenghi Flavor. He's had some previous books, Plenty More, Ottolenghi Simple. And when I think of Ottolenghi, I think of flavor. He's introduced me to some new flavors like sumac and za'atar, which I had to do some research on. Flavor combinations like mint and dill, and basil and cumin, which I would never have put together myself. The ingredients can take a little searching, but I've been able to find them around town in bulk food stores and things like that. The recipes can be a little challenging. If you're at all daunted, I would recommend you start with Ottolenghi Simple, which was where I started, and it's a lot easier way into his cooking. His other books tend to be a little bit intermediate, but once you get introduced to his flavor in that simple book, boy, you're going to want to enter the larger world of. He's got a way with food.
That's very, very important. I mean, I always appreciate the cookbook suggestions, so another one to add to my list. You've got one last pick. Again, we're going for diversity here. We're talking about Jan Arden, the Jan Arden, and her latest book, and then a cookbook. And now, what's next?
Well, this is a book called Broken Ribs and Popcorn. It's by Jeff Curbison. Curbison wrote a book on the 1970s Winnipeg Jets called The Hot Line. It was about the famous line of Hull, Hedberg, and Nilsson. This new book is about the Winnipeg Jets of the 1980s, led by Dale Hawerchuk. They were a great team. Every year they ran into a team from Edmonton who would win and then go on to win it all. And as the subtitle says, how the Winnipeg Jets became the best team in the NHL's most offensive era to not win the Stanley Cup. So for me, as a Jets fan growing up in the 80s, when I read this book, I go right back to those player names and those plays. And I know I get lost every time I open this book. And I would describe it as a Proustian experience, but that's probably saying a little bit too much about myself. But I have a strange combination of interests.
No, I was going to say this is one for all the Jets fans out there who are maybe missing the sport even more than ever right now.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, I do want to ask you, as I mentioned right off the top, Winnipeg in the midst of Code Red, the province's most critical response in their pandemic response system. Can you speak a little bit more to how this has affected McNalley?
Well, it was almost immediate over the weekend. We noticed a drop in traffic. Having been through it in the spring, we were expecting it. We're a lot better prepared to turn to our online orders, our website orders. So we are prepared and people are turning to that. So we're pleased that we have a functioning website. Not every bookseller in Canada can say that. So we're going to be okay. The bookstore, relatively speaking, I'm pleased with it. We are suffering a little bit more with the restaurant. The restaurant, as soon as the weekend went down, they'd had to literally shut down. It's down to takeout and only and pick up through Skip the Dishes and things. So yeah, we're bookstores right now is paying the restaurant's rent. So if anybody out there wants some takeout, I encourage you to use Prairie Ink. It's a great way to support us as a whole.
No, it's a great plug, and one of the things that I'm always struck by, you walk into McNalley, and you're surrounded by all these books, and then the music section off to the right, but also the smell of McNalley. There's such a distinct part of it, and I think Prairie Ink contributes a good portion to that. So if people are looking to recreate that, they can order online through McNalley Robinson and order some delivery, and there you have it. It's almost like being in the store. Maybe they can even change their Zoom background to pretend that they're there.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to have to get creative to get through this, Simon.
I think so, Chris, and I know you're up for the task. Thank you both, Chris and Kai. I do want to say you can find their picks up at classic107.com or, of course, at McNalley Robinson Booksellers in person or online at mcnalleyrobinson.com. And then, Chris, I want to give one last word to you about a new segment in the Winnipeg Free Press. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, we're going to put what to read in the Winnipeg Free Press. We've been doing that through October and beyond. And so on the books pages of every Saturday Free Press, you will see one of these books featured with a short plug written by one of us. And yeah, so watch for that, and as well as on their website and so on.
Absolutely. Chris, thanks so much for taking the time today. And thanks, Kai.
Thanks.
Thanks, Simon.